Hello, my name is Shontilia Guy, and I'm one of the MTSS Specialists for the district. Thank you for joining us for an overview of the MTSS framework to learn about core, supplemental, intensive, and individualized supports for students and resources available to support you in that work. Our goal is to provide a short overview of multi-tiered system of support implementation and your role in the three-tiered instruction and intervention model while explaining teaming structures, data decision rules, the standard treatment protocol, and the specific learning disability 2020 policy change. It's important that you understand the MTSS framework, the policy change, your role in it, and resources available to support you. First, what is an MTSS? A multi-tiered system of support is North Carolina's and CMS's framework for total school improvement to maximize growth for all learners. It is how we do school well. A well-functioning MTSS has 6 critical components, which are leadership, building capacity and infrastructure, communication and collaboration, database problem solving, the three-tiered instruction and intervention model, and data evaluation. We can categorize all facets of school within these critical components. To implement a healthy MTSS, it requires the principal's vision, includes all staff members and students across all tiers, and spans academics, behavior, SEL, and attendance. The majority of our work with our multi-tiered system of support around curriculum and instruction, as well as the core, is the function of our MTSS. It's important that all school staff have common understanding and shared language around MTSS in order to implement it well. Do you view all of these components as part of your MTSS? Do your colleagues? If not, that is where our work begins. We must understand the essential elements of the framework. Staff need to develop a deep understanding of the MTSS framework, which is about maximizing growth for all students and includes all staff, students, and stakeholders as a vehicle toward total school improvement. If we value growing each of our students, we all must support MTSS implementation. So let's begin with a little history. Prior to this school year, the district had not provisioned a comprehensive standards-aligned core curriculum used by all schools or high-quality interventions with the needed progress monitoring tools and professional development to support equitable instruction and intervention access to all students. That means there was little standardization of core and intervention resources, making it difficult to tell if instruction, curriculum, or environment accounted for each school's successes and struggles. We have not been able to monitor effectiveness of interventions in years past with so many interventions across the district, which we will now be able to do with a standard treatment protocol. Our data must be reliable across all tiers in order to support student growth. So what should we be doing? We should be providing high-quality core instruction to all students and interventions to students who need them in an equitable manner. We should be providing differentiated core that addresses students' needs related to unfinished learning, English language learning, and talent development. Are there school-wide expectations for the way you deliver core content to your students within whole group, small groups, reteaching, and differentiation? It is an expectation that the majority of learners will respond to our core curriculum and instruction in order to have a healthy MTSS framework. This model shows an example of the levels of support we can provide for students. Core includes what we do for all students. This includes attendance, behavior, social-emotional learning, and academic support. We provide supplemental and intensive interventions for students who have not responded to lower tiers of instruction. The MTSS framework is a total school improvement model to address the needs of all learners quickly and effectively through research-based instruction and intervention. So what does this mean for teachers? There must be appropriate infrastructures in place at your school in order for the MTSS framework to be functioning properly, including the needed teaming structures to support implementation.
This graphic shows the teaming structures that are needed to be operational for an effective MTSS. Instructional leaders and some teachers in your school are part of the MTSS leadership team, which analyzes school-wide data to understand and address trends across the school. Do we have a strong core? If not, we need to examine our instruction, curriculum, and environment. Instructional leaders guide the grade level or content area PLCs in continuing the work of the MTSS leadership team by examining core data, making needed adjustments, and matching students to interventions. Instructional leaders and teachers are also part of the intensive teams, which look at the whole child for individual problem solving when more intensive support is needed, in addition to core instruction. Teachers also have an important role on the IEP and 504 teams when specially designed instruction and/or accommodations are needed. These data decision rule flowcharts guide leadership teams and grade level and content area PLCs through database problem solving. They are linked in the title of this slide. As we review our universal screeners in K-8 and common assessments in grades 9-12, we examine what the data is telling us about core instruction. If core is strong, we continue those practices and begin intervention matching for at-risk students. If we need to strengthen our core, we strategically plan how to do so and begin intervention matching for a smaller percentage of students. To begin intervention matching, we use our standard treatment protocol, which we will show you in a moment. Because it is an expectation that a majority of learners respond to the core, it is important that we examine the instruction, curriculum, and environment when it is not. Instruction is how we teach, curriculum is what we teach, and environment is the classroom climate we create through management, grouping, and scheduling to support students. Once the team has identified one or more areas needing changing, they can determine high leverage practices to implement across the grade level that will result in more students meeting grade level expectations. This is also an important time to examine how subgroups are responding to core. Are there subgroups by sex, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, students with disabilities, for whom the core is more or less effective? If so, that could indicate an equity issue, which we also need to address. The leadership team should provide needed supports to grade level and content area PLCs in addressing the needs across all tiers. Remember, the purpose of the MTSS framework is to maximize growth for all learners. In order for it to be effective, we need 80% of students meeting grade level expectations through rigorous differentiated core. 15 to 20% of students may need supplemental interventions in addition to core. 1 to 5% of learners may need intensive instruction in addition to core. Some students will need specially designed instruction through an individualized education program in addition to core. It's imperative that intensive and specially designed instruction are in addition to core and do not replace it. All students are general education first and require core instruction. Notice we've undergone a language shift and now call the tiers core, supplemental, and intensive rather than tiers 1, 2, and 3 as recommended by DPI to help develop common understanding and shared language around MTSS. North Carolina has shifted to a standard treatment protocol approach for interventions. We have done this to ensure equitable and efficient intervention matching for students who need them. A standard treatment protocol has interventions for which the components are well specified and have been shown to work generally for large numbers of students, have well-defined procedures, materials, and practices that allow quick access for students and staff. The standard treatment protocol has both academic and behavior interventions into separated in tabs by subject and grade bands. So we will open this document just to give you a quick preview of what it looks like. So across the bottom, you can see the different tabs, which are broken up by grade and subject. The first series of tabs are our academic tabs. The last 3 tabs are our behavior tabs. So if you look at this particular tab, we are looking at K-1 literacy. On the left side, under the yellow banners, you will notice the supplemental interventions and the prescription for the intervention for implementation. On the right side, you'll notice the intensive side. And so that has the prescription for the intensive interventions. If you hover over each different intervention, you will notice a link to an intervention summary. Each intervention summary has a series of questions which help you in understanding the intervention, as well as provide you with information about additional professional development that you can find so that you can learn how to implement the intervention in detail. Each intervention has a self-paced Canvas course associated with it. Under question number 6, you can find the My Talent information available for the self-paced Canvas course. If it is not shown on there yet, it will be soon. So you may continue to look through the standard treatment protocol to learn more about the interventions for the grade and subject areas that you teach. For each intervention that we have, we need to progress monitor it. AIMSweb will be the progress monitoring tool we will use for reading and math. So why is progress monitoring important? First, we can see how our students are performing compared to other students nationwide, meaning it is a norm-referenced assessment. Tracking growth over time allows us to monitor skill acquisition. We analyze progress monitoring data as a team to see how groups are responding to interventions as well as individual students. If our group interventions are not resulting in the majority of students making growth, we may need to examine our instruction, curriculum, and environment. Intervention failure should be a rare event if the intervention and progress monitoring are given with fidelity. This year, the district has purchased AIMSweb Plus for general education and exceptional children to use for progress monitoring. This is really exciting to be able to track student growth over time and across tiers and specially designed instruction. We have purchased 37,500 licenses for teachers to progress monitor. We have a train the trainer model, and professional development is starting in late October for AIMSweb. This year, the district will utilize DPI's Every Child Accountability System, which is also known as ECATS, to document core, supplemental, and intensive interventions. EC teams also use ECATS to document evaluations, IEPs, and related service time. Utilizing the same documentation platform ensures clear tracking and accountability across all teams. ECATS can be accessed through an icon in NC Ed Cloud. Professional development information is located in the MTSS course catalog. Finally, we have a list of resources for you related to MTSS Core and EC. The top bullet that you'll see is the MTSS Canvas Resource Hub. In it, you will find all the documents referenced in today's presentation. The middle bullets, the next bullet is the standard treatment protocol, which we just opened for you. And the third one is the MTSS course catalog, which has all the professional development related to the MTSS framework and academic and behavioral interventions. The next set of bullets have information from learning and teaching related to core. The final bullet has a link to the EC playlist. And now we will share with you information related to the specific learning disabilities policy change in 2020.
I'm Marianna Sartin. I'm the high school program manager with the Exceptional Children Department. And as we just mentioned, I'm going to share some updates regarding the policy around students having a specific learning disability. So one thing to note is that this is in effect right now. As of July 1st, 2020, we have moved away from a discrepancy model where we determined eligibility based on a 15-point or greater difference between students' intelligence as measured by an IQ test and achievement, which we typically measured by standardized achievement tests. The focus now is students' responsiveness to instruction and evidence-based interventions through a multi-tiered system of support as a component of a comprehensive evaluation. A psychological evaluation is no longer a required component to determine SLD eligibility, and IEP teams are prohibited from using a discrepancy between intellectual ability and achievement to determine SLD eligibility. Eligibility is still determined using a full and individual evaluation using multiple data sources. In order to identify specific learning disabilities, the following essential components must be in place: a system of high-quality core instruction and evidence-based intervention, multiple tiers of instruction that vary in intensity and are matched to student need, a systematic process of problem-solving and data-based decision-making, and a comprehensive balanced assessment system that includes common formative assessments, interim benchmark assessments, outcome assessments, universal screening, progress monitoring, and diagnostic assessments. It's important to understand that several other eligibility categories also require the intervention process as a component of the eligibility determination process, although SLD is the only category that relies solely on the intervention process to determine eligibility. EC students may be found eligible for service as learning disabled under one or more of these 8 categories. It's important to know in which area the student is receiving special education services. It's also important to remember that individuals identified with a learning disability can become anything they want, including comedians, talk show hosts, Olympic athletes, or even a celebrity chef. It's important not to clump students together and refer to them as EC kids or EC students. Students found eligible for special education as learning disabled receive specially designed instruction from an EC teacher and possibly other service providers. Students with disabilities are general education students first and are required to have access to the differentiated core. They may also have access to additional tiered intervention or support. By definition, students with disabilities do not have an intellectual disability. Therefore, they should be able to access grade level content or curriculum when provided with the appropriate supports and interventions. Fact sheet number 4 on SLD 2020 addresses exclusionary factors. This criterion requires evidence that the student's learning difficulties are not the primary result of any of these following: not visual, hearing, or motor disability, intellectual disability, emotional disturbance, cultural factors, environmental or economic influences, and or loss of instruction or time due to factors that include, but are not limited to, absences, tardies, high transiency rates, and suspensions. So those all have to be eliminated as the primary reason for the learning difficulties. Once identified for services, EC and general education teachers alongside the IEP team work collaboratively to ensure access to all services as identified on the Individualized Education Program, or IEP.
Hello, this is Ann Jolly, Elementary Program Manager for the EC Department. Specific learning disability is the most common area of disability, and reading disabilities are the most commonly identified area of specific learning disability. Ensuring that students have access to grade level content while receiving specially designed instruction is critical to closing gaps for these students. EC teachers, general education teachers, and other IEP members work collaboratively with other stakeholders to ensure the strongest instruction possible. This includes access to grade level content, universal supports, as well as accommodations documented on the IEP. Links on this slide will provide you with additional information in all of those areas. It is also important to note that dyslexia and dyscalculia are included under IDEA eligibility area of specific learning disability. This slide provides links to House Bill 149, recognizing dyslexia and dyscalculia, as well as information to access a demystifying dyslexia course available to all educators in North Carolina. This slide provides additional information and resources to further support your understanding and implementation around specific learning disability identification and specially designed instruction from the state as well as from the district. Once again, district departments have aligned to ensure teachers have the resources and professional development needed to ensure all students receive excellent, aligned, just-in-time instruction to meet their individual needs. This highlights the commitment to high-quality instruction and, if necessary, intervention for all students. Please contact us with any questions or support needed. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to all learners.